Hi, I'm Rob from HopZine.com. Thanks for joining me for another video beer review. This time we are looking at something I haven't seen for quite some time. It's a bottle of BrewDog's How to Disappear Completely. It's a 2.8% ABV Fake Fix Double IPA. That's what it says on there, or previously referred to as an Imperial Mild, whatever that means. I think it was a challenge once upon a time. I mean, and I'm going back to 2009. I think this was released initially, for the first time and the last time, in June 2009. It is currently late September, actually, no, early October 2013, so 4 years ago, over 4 years ago, since this beer was last brewed, as far as I'm aware. Back then it was about, I think it was 3.5, but 3.4, 3.5 back then. It's a little bit lower in ABV, and obviously a lot of breweries have kind of like gone down that route of those lower ABV beers in the meantime. Yeah, this hasn't been brewed for ages. It was in tank when I went up and brewed at BrewDog, and James showed us around new brewery at Ellen. Yeah, this was in tank, and he tried to draw some off, but there were that many hops in it. I mean, it just came out as like a small trickle of kind of like sludge. There were just too many hops in there. I'll give you a little. Well, I'll give you the details off of the bottle in a second. Actually, I'll give you those details in a while after I've tasted it. There's a little bit left in the bottle. Just don't want to overdo it. Beer in the glass. Yeah, a real nice kind of mid-brown. I mean, it looks like a brown ale, weirdly. Yeah, kind of like that. It's definitely on the kind of like chestnut side of things. Kind of like, yeah, like brown sauce, that kind of thing. The head, quite a sudsy, kind of soapy looking, pale beige, I'd say. So check out the aroma. Wow, that's a lot of hops. And that's primarily all it is. As far as the other things go, I'll get into the hops in a minute. But the other things in there's a light brown bread thing going on. That's it. That's all I can get, apart from shitloads of hops. And it is it's that T90 kind of like hot pellet kind of aroma you get, which is like it's quite sharp. For me, it has kind of like quite a sherbety note. It's like if you pick up a handful of hot pellets, it's unique to pellets, I'd say, opposed to whole leaf hops. You are getting a hint of kind of like caramel malt in there actually, but the hops are kind of like lemon sherbet, grapefruit juice, grassy, slightly kind of soapy, like a washing up powder. Weirdly, it does smell like, excuse me, a lot of the beers I've had with kind of quite fresh Brett in it, like the beers from Anchorage. But I mean, this is from hops, that's from Brett. But it's this kind of like weird kind of bath salts. It smells good. It smells very unique, but I mean, it's undeniable, just a lot of hops. So let's dive in and find out what it's all about. Cheers. Interesting. I'll tell you about the ingredients. This is what it says on this side of the bottle. I'll pour the rest in now actually. It's got quite a comprehensive malt bill, considering its backbone. It says backbone of caramel chocolate. You do get quite a lot of chocolate malt, but chocolate malt for me doesn't taste like chocolate. It has its own specific character. So caramel, chocolate malt, amber, and amber malt. So I presume there's a lot of pale malt in there as the kind of basis of this. But I mean, you are getting quite a lot of colour from that. I presume that's those darker malts. Anyway, so it's hopped with Centennial and Columbus. As far as flavour goes, initially it's quite neutral, and it's slightly numbing in a way. You get a sensation, but you don't get a bitterness. You get a kind of like a black tea, without a doubt. Not very strong, but it's definitely kind of like quite a weak black tea. As it comes on, you are getting kind of like a slight kind of like wet leaf kind of thing going on. Definitely that black tea continues. slight kind of lemon peel, orange flesh, I'd say, yeah. Maybe those kind of slightly more watery oranges you get around Christmas. Little ones, satsumas, nectarines, that kind of thing. Not nectarines. Clementines, that kind of thing. There is a... It's massively drinkable. You barely notice it's there. There is a nice kind of level of bitterness to it. It's not punishing at all. It's really quite demure in a way. It's slightly pithy at the back end, slightly floral. Balanced, believe it or not. I do have very little memory of this beer from back then. But it's remarkably balanced. I mean, if you look at what's happened since, I guess this beer was done many years ago. Nanny State, which I don't care for. That's all bitterness. It's like a hop tea. I don't like that at all. I think you've got something which I think is a natural progression. Excuse me, of a beer like this. Excuse me, which is Dead Pony Club. I think that's got a lot more going for it. I think it's got a lot more malt sweetness. I think it's got a lot more exciting hop flavours actually. Still respectable amount of bitterness, but this is a little bit more malt complexity than something like that. But it reminds me of a beer that Adnams brewed a while back, which was once again a low ABV beer. This is a bit more drinkable, I'd say, not as kind of cloying as that was. They were called Soulstar. Yeah, this is a lot better. But you can see those comparisons. For me, this is going to be quite a different one for BrewDog. That I'd say this tastes as much like a session bitter that they've ever brewed. 'Cause it's got that quite traditional. Well, I know they're not traditional malts in a British bitter sense, but kind of like slightly kind of brown bitter. It looks like a brown bitter. I mean, it looks darker on camera. It looks like a stout on camera, but it's a lot paler. Take my word for it. But it has that balance. It has a little bit of sweetness, and it has a nice amount of hop bitterness, which I guess takes you back to what did an English bitter taste like once upon a time. I know it flies in the face of what kind of BrewDog kind of like say. I remember seeing Martin and James doing a video recently for the American series and saying quite disparaging things about a British cask ale, but this tastes like a really good best bitter. I'm sure that's not what they're aiming for, but that's not a million miles away from what they've achieved. A best bitter with a really nice American hop profile. I like it. When I started this glass, I wasn't that sure. The more I drink it, the more I enjoy it. Glad I've got a couple more bottles. It's one of those things you can just come in after a day's work, have a couple of days. It's 2.8, good amount of flavour. It's not gonna bowl you over excessively, but it's still very enjoyable. So that is a bottle of the returning How to Disappear Completely from BrewDog. As it says, Fake Fix Double IPA. I'm going to go with Imperial Mild, a bit closer. But then again, should I be stronger mild? Hopped up bitter, that's what I'm going to call it. 2.8% ABV from BrewDog in Ellen, in Aberdeenshire. Well worth checking out. Interesting, different, and surprising. Anyway, I'm Rob from HopZine.com. See you next time. Cheers.